What's going on, fight fans? It's your host Sebastian, and welcome back to the Boxing Tip. Now, I just made a video about Jezreel Corrales taking on Takashi Uchiyama in a rematch. Now I'm going to talk about another fight scheduled in Japan taking place on the same weekend, and that is between IBF Super Bantamweight title holder Jonathan Guzman versus Yukinori Oguni from Japan. Now, Jonathan Guzman is 22-0 with 22 knockouts. Pretty impressive record there. He's a very offensive fighter. He's a very versatile fighter. I'm actually quite impressed with him. Actually, he's a real volume puncher. Likes to throw a lot of combinations, but can also box from the outside as well. Has a pretty good jab. Decent defense, could be improved on the defense a little bit, but nevertheless, I don't think he has too much to worry about as he is facing a not so heavy hitter, Oguni. Yukinori Oguni has one loss on his record. His one loss is to the same fighter that Jonathan Guzman actually won the vacant IBF title from, and that is Shingo Wake. I think that's how you pronounce his name. But yeah, that's Yukinori's only defeat. I've seen the fight. Actually, it was a pretty bloody, rugged fight between the two. But Yukinori, he's a pretty decent boxer. Nothing too flashy there. Kind of your I wouldn't say he's like a bum or anything, but he's kind of your average fighter. Decent jab, doesn't do anything too crazy. Not a whole lot of skill involved. He's pretty fundamentally sound though. I can't say that about Yukinori Oguni. He's a decent boxer. Jonathan Guzman, like I was explaining, he's a very versatile boxer. Throws a lot of combinations. He's a real volume puncher when he wants to be, but he can also be kind of an outside stick and move type of boxer as well. And like I said, his defense is a little bit on the iffy side. He has been hit in some of his fights, but he displays some pretty good endurance though, as he works through being hit, and keeps the offense going. I'm not seeing this fight as being too competitive. I think Jonathan Guzman, like the other 22 opponents, will stop Yukinori Oguni, but nevertheless, it's never too easy of a task to just jump in there and get rid of some guy. He's gonna have to be smart about it. Otherwise, Yukinori can exploit maybe some of his weaknesses like his defense and maybe be able to catch him in between his offense. Jonathan Guzman may be the faster fighter between the two, so it's looking like a pretty difficult night for Yukinori so far if you want to compare the two. So I am picking Jonathan Guzman to win this fight. So Jonathan Guzman, after this fight, assuming he wins, seems like a pretty credible opponent for Guillermo Rigondeaux. I would like to see that fight. Being that Guillermo Rigondeaux, he's a very masterful boxer, has accomplished a lot in his career so far. Is a little bit on the dry spell with the boxing fans. Isn't fighting on any major televised networks, isn't fighting any major competition, but nevertheless, I know he is eager to get in there with some top guys. Maybe Jonathan Guzman, has the chops, to jump in there with Guillermo Rigondeaux and take his chance, unify the titles. That'd be a good unification match. So, they both fight at 122 pounds, so I have no issue if that fight ever came to fruition. So, yeah, like I said, it's a pretty interesting thing. The 122-pound division has some decent fighters still. You still got Scott Quigg in the mix. You got Jonathan Guzman, and then you got Guillermo Rigondeaux. We got some other decent fighters at 122 pounds, some pretty good fighters. So it makes for a very interesting situation. Obviously no one's eager to jump in there with Guillermo Rigondeaux, but Jonathan Guzman seems like he has the warrior spirit. Seems like he doesn't have too much, given his resume, he hasn't fought like major competition. So I can't really give him too much credit for his willingness to fight top level opponents, but maybe after this fight, if Jonathan Guzman looks impressive, gets his first title defense in victory, then who knows? The possibilities are endless. I do like Jonathan Guzman as a fighter. I think he's a real talent at 122 pounds. So, maybe him and Rigo, maybe sometime in the later portion of 2017, maybe they'll be able to get a fight scheduled. So, we could all have some pretty wishful thinking about, a fight like that going down. Two undefeated fighters, one guy known for knocking out all of his opponents, the other guy known for being one of the best fighters in the sport today. So it's a really exciting situation going on there. But nevertheless, man, if any of you pay attention to either two of these boxers, or are looking forward to seeing these two guys fight, let me know what you think. Who do you think is going to win? I think the majority would probably go ahead and say Jonathan Guzman is going to win. I think it's pretty safe to assume that he will. But nevertheless, I would like to hear your thoughts anyway. Also, subscribe to the channel, guys. Share the video with your boxing homies. Make sure you introduce someone to boxing. Jonathan Guzman, all 22 knockouts, man. He's a good fighter to kind of introduce somebody to boxing, starting with him. You know what I'm saying? Even though he's not the most well-known guy in boxing, nevertheless, he knocks out all his guys. He's an exciting fighter to watch, and he's fought on PBC a couple of times, so he may seem familiar in a sort of sense if you watch PBC, all of their fight cards. But like I said, let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Sebastian from The Boxing Tip signing out. Peace.